sister-in-law has been eating all my babies. Story time. My husband and I have been married for well over 5 years, and in these 5 years we've managed to have only one child. It has been always the wish of my husband and I to have more children, and because we plan on not having our children very spaced apart, we have been trying to get pregnant since after we had our first child. From the time that my husband and I got married, the relative of his that I've been the closest to is his younger sister. His sister and I have been close from the time that we found out that our birthdays are only 2 days apart, so because of that we usually call each other twins or sisters. The job I have currently, I got it when I was at least 6 months pregnant, if my memory serves me right. So because of this, I was told that I wouldn't have maternity leave. So immediately after giving birth, they said they would give me a week and I had to go back to work. Immediately after having my first child, since I had to go back for work, I asked my sister-in-law, who I was very close to come and live with us, so that as she was looking for a job, she could be staying with us and helping me out with the baby. And for sure she agreed because me and her were very close. Let's call her Fatima. My child has always known Fatima as his mom. Actually, he calls me by my name and he calls Fatima Mommy. And I have no problem with this because I can give her the credit to say she's basically raised him. I had no issues with her remaining with my baby at home. She took care of my baby so well. Of course, my child knows that I'm his mother, but because Fatima has had more time with him, he has ended up calling her mom. He also make mention to say my sister is very religious. My husband and I, not so much. We actually don't even go to any church on Saturday or Sunday. We're just usually home. We pray, but we're not religious people. We know who God is, definitely. We are Christian, would like to identify as such, but we don't really associate with any church. On most Sundays, my sister-in-law would go with my son to her church. My sister is so religious. She literally takes part in every church program you can think of. She goes to church more than maybe even 3 times a week. And honestly, we had no problem with this. I was actually very glad she was introducing my child to God. So I appreciated her for this. She was so religious. She's literally that person who walks around with a big Bible. She doesn't wear trousers. You just know, like the typical religious girl. On most times, my sister would have night prayers. Rather, let me call her my sister-in-law. She would have night prayers between 24 and 01 a.m. And honestly, because I wasn't very religious, I had some issues that I was going through. So I always would give my prayer request to her. She would tell me anything, just give your prayer request to me. And obviously, me and my husband always did so. I mean, we needed someone to pray for us because we weren't very religious. At one point, my husband had an upcoming contract that he was about to get. The only thing that he needed to do was send over his account details, just a few things, like the smallest parts of it. He had gotten it, the interview was successful and everything. But there were some delays, so I took it to my sister-in-law in prayer. I told her, please help me pray about this. My husband is really excited for this deal and he wants to get it. Help us. She was glad to do it. She was always glad to be given prayer requests anyway. After these prayers, honestly, we don't know why it flopped, but my husband didn't get the contract. The only thing that was left was for him to sign the documents and submit his account detail, but the contract flopped and he didn't get it. We didn't understand it because this contract was so huge, it would have literally changed our lives. But what happened, he didn't get it. We didn't think anything of it, and actually my sister-in-law told us that it's fine, something else is coming. This is why God didn't allow that contract to go through. Because of how prayerful Fatima was, honestly, anything that she said regarding God, we believed. I mean, what did we know about God? Amidst all these things that are going on, me and my husband are trying with everything we have in us to have another child. Remember, we didn't want to space out our children. We preferred that we get done with childbearing so that we focus on other things in life. But every pregnancy that I have, I end up losing. Nothing is just working out in our lives. And to be fair, our lives start becoming harder than they were. Like, finances were hard in the home. We weren't suffering, we were comfortable, but things started becoming worse. Because my husband and I are not superstitious people, so we just assumed, it's just time. In all this, what stood out to me was how my sister-in-law would always mention how, I can't wait to have a marriage like yours. I can't wait to marry someone who's just like my brother. I really love how my brother treats you, and I would love to have such a relationship one day. I would understand her because she was my age mate, and at this point I was in my late 30s already. She was my age mate, and obviously at that point, a female who wants to get married at some point would obviously be thinking this is the right time to settle, and there was no one coming along. Aside finances, other things started becoming weird in the house. Like, my husband and I started to argue more often than not, and also my husband and I would have sleep paralysis so often. Like, you'd be having a bad dream at the same time, both of you wake up and say, oh my god, I was having a bad dream, I couldn't wake up, you know, that type of a thing. So it became weird, and every time we'd ask Fatima, she would also say the same, she was having bad dreams too. To be honest, I always thought her night prayers were weird, because personally I thought I was hearing chanting most of the time, and like praying, you know, that thing where someone is saying words that don't really mean anything in any language. Like, she was speaking languages we couldn't understand, but me and my husband would always make a joke saying she's probably just doing tongues. Yeah, she's probably just doing tongues, whatever it's called. So we never thought anything of it until this happened. If you want anything you've seen me using today, you can find it at Sass Beauty. Please follow them on TikTok. I'll be doing a giveaway there, and I'll also be having an online class one of these days. Registrations for this month's class have closed, but I'll be doing another class next month on the 1st, so you can register for that one. So book me for makeup or hair, the number is always in my bio. So this day, during one of her midnight prayers, Fatima's midnight prayers, I decided to go to the kitchen because they were getting a little too loud and they woke me up. I didn't want to disturb her, but I wanted to drink some water and just go around the house to make sure that it was really her that I was hearing. So what I found in the sitting room literally gave me the shock of my life. I found my sister-in-law, because that's where she used to do her prayers from. I found her in the sitting room and she was facing the wall, so I couldn't see everything clearly. But she was chanting some words that I couldn't understand in a language, honestly, that I've never heard before, if that's even a language. And it didn't seem like she was praying. She was facing the wall. She had a few things lined up down. There were candles, and also there were some dolls, these dolls that babies play with. Yeah, there were those, and then there were 5 of them that were tied with a red material, like a red cloth, by the neck here. And then she had one in her hands that she was pressing. I couldn't see everything, but it looked like she was pressing it by the neck, or so I assumed. So honestly, because we were having weird things going on in the house, I was starting to suspect Fatima, because some of her prayers never really used to make sense to me, and the weird dreams were starting to have, the arguments. I just felt uneasy around Fatima. But remember, she was like my closest friend. She was literally my best friend, honestly. So when I saw that, I didn't want to tell my husband by word of mouth. I decided to go to our bedroom to wake him up. So from the design of our house, all our bedrooms are within the same passage, like along the same passage. So if you were to enter my bedroom, you would see the door to Fatima's bedroom. So when I decided to call my husband from our bedroom, I was standing in the passage. So for me to see that Fatima has entered her room, I would see that her door has opened. I don't know if you get that type of a thing. So this is the passage. Her room is there, our room is here, that type of a thing. Yeah. Sorry, but you have to go to part 2. So I was very eager to catch Fatima with whatever she was doing, because this was her brother I was dealing with. I couldn't just go to him and tell him bad stuff about the sister. I really wanted to catch her red-handed. So what I did is I just opened my bedroom door while standing at the door so that I can see the passage and have a clear view in case Fatima tried to pass. Then I called him. Because my husband is a light sleeper, I just had to whisper and he heard me. I signaled that we need to go. We went to the sitting room and Fatima wasn't there. Get there and realize that Fatima is not there like I thought. My husband gets very upset and asks me, what are we here for? So I failed to say anything because honestly, I'm very shocked at whatever has just gone on. So we go to the bedroom and I explained to him what I saw with Fatima, and he just brushes it off. You know how men are. He just tells me, you know what, you are just, sleepwalking, or you are just scared of something. Let me also mention to say, before we go to our bedroom, we actually choose to go to Fatima's room and check if she's in there. Lo and behold, Fatima is in bed, sleeping like a baby. After all this drama, honestly, I'm frightened, and this shakes the relationship between me and Fatima, as well as my husband, because he thinks I was trying to display a certain image about the sister, because I told him what I saw. But also, to some extent, he told me we could look further into it and see if I was telling the truth. After that, I also decided that I'll talk to my mother. Since she was more religious than I was, maybe she would have an idea about what was going on. So according to my mother, she says whatever that was definitely looks like rituals. Do I agree? 100%. So my mother suggests that we should go see someone, a pastor, who she trusts so much. And of course, at this point, I'm desperate for answers because of the things that have been going on in my life. Pastor sees me. He requests that we come back the next day with my husband because he wants to pray for us. So I don't delay this. And for sure, the next day I go with Zach, my husband, so that he prays for us. When he sees us, the first thing he talks about is the opportunity that my husband missed on, the contract that he was supposed to send his bank details for. So he says there's someone within our home who caused that contract not to go through. And then also he mentioned that the reason that I have not been having children is because of a lady we're living with in the same house. So honestly, this sounds a bit... I thought my mother had talked to the pastor about what was going on in our house, so I didn't really believe him. Or should I call him a prophet? I don't know. But he was a man of God. That's what he called himself. So I didn't really believe him. And honestly, we had no reason to believe him because we were not religious people and not very superstitious. So for me, what was in my head is Fatima was definitely doing something, or her religion practices some type of stuff like that. Because you know that religions differ and some religions really do weird things. That's what I believed innocently. After hearing that, my husband was hell-bent on the fact that Fatima definitely had something to do with this, because this one really got my husband, because that contract was supposed to change our lives. And also, what was funny and what almost aligned with the story is the fact that the dolls that I saw Fatima with were 5. She had one in her hands. The number of dolls she had is equivalent to the number of miscarriages I've had. So I don't know if it was a coincidence. Honestly, I was just in denial basically because I really didn't want it to be Fatima. I came up with a plan. I told my husband that we should install small cameras that would help us see what goes on at home. The cameras showed us that for sure Fatima has been performing some sort of rituals, and this was done in the sitting room, and while performing those rituals she would mention my name and she would also mention my husband's name. My name was mentioned in relation to children because I was failing to have children. His name was mentioned in relation to jobs and anything to do with success. When we saw this, honestly, we had all the proof that we needed. So all that was left is to confront Fatima. So what we did is we caught the guys and they retrieved the CCTV footage. After that, we went with this footage to Fatima. We called for a family meeting because we didn't want a situation where she refuses. And honestly, things with spirituality are difficult to deal with. We didn't want a situation where we lose the footage, just like I didn't find her in the sitting room the day that I saw her the first time. So we said that we would approach her in a meeting with the entire family. So we called for a meeting and Fatima was part of the meeting. As usual, she was being very nice to my baby, but at this point I didn't even want her to hold my child because she was so weird. In the meeting, I told her mother to chair the meeting and talk about everything that we had seen in the CCTV and ask the reason for that. According to what was seen in the CCTV, Fatima confirmed that the only reason she was doing that is that she didn't hate me or anything, but she just wanted to have an equal share of life and also find a man. That she was feeling bad that she didn't have a man up to then, and someone who's her age mate, me, her brother's wife, had children and had a marriage that was going on well. And for her brother, she wanted him not to do so fine so that our marriage could fail. And also she made sure that we had arguments. In what way, I don't know, but yes, we did have arguments. I did lose babies and my husband did lose opportunities. So she made sure that we didn't have good opportunities that would bring money or finances to the home, because my job wasn't earning me much. I couldn't take care of the home with my salary alone. Her whole point was to make our lives miserable. And honestly, after that, everyone in the family has abandoned Fatima and she has been deserted. She's been told to go and live by herself. No one knows where she lives and no one has communicated with her since this incident. This happened sometime last year around Christmas. If this happened in your home, what would you do? Because I was freaked out by this story. Anyway, our good sis and her husband need advice if they should forgive the sister, take her for prayers and bring her back in their home, because she kept their son very well and she's suffering where she is. Would you bring her back?
I keep trying to tell people it's the sister in Christ who will judge you about everything that you got to worry about. It's the holier than thou sisters who always want to pray for someone you got to worry about. Not just the sisters, the brothers in church too. Don't let everyone pray for you, because you never know who they're praying to, what they're saying in their prayers, especially when they start trying to speak in tongue. Trust me, always the people in the church. And also they know how to use the some to their advantage. Always the people. Doesn't the Bible say the devil knows the Bible more than you do? All right, you got to be careful for those sisters, because how dare you are married before her. Not only are you married, but you got the job that she wanted. right, while pregnant. And then on top of that, you turn around and made her the babysitter of your child, and she want a child, and she also want a marriage like yours. So how dare you have the life that she wants? And then you want to tell her to pray for you to have a better life. How dare you? That's why she was praying for you, quote unquote. And also she was using puppets, voodoo dolls, to put spells on you. How did your husband get the job? All he had to do was submit some paper, and all of a sudden he lost the job. How? You never thought about that? Maybe those sisters in the church that you asked to pray for you. That's why I never let nobody lay hands on me. I never let nobody pray for me, because I don't need your prayers. I don't know what you're saying in your prayers, because I pray. What's one of my prayers? Well, God, can I hear me? Am I too low? Am I too much of a sinner? Because God hear me just fine. Be careful who you let pray for you, because those sisters who be looking at you when you wear skirts that are above your knees, who will walk around and try to say, hi sister, can you lower your skirt? They're just as judgmental as the people outside. As a matter of fact, I trust the people outside of the church than the ones in the church, because at least the one outside of the church, you know that they can stab you in the back, so you can watch out for them. But the ones in the church, they do it in secret. You got to worry about the ones who do it in secret. Sister Fatima was trying to take over your life, sis. Have a good.
What is your most radical belief?
You can believe whatever you want, it doesn't matter to me, but Christianity was and still is a colonizer tactic. And to this day, it still traumatizes the Black community. Hypocrisy in Christianity altogether is hilarious, but the amount of Christian hypocrisy in the Black community is astounding. My community is filled with misogyny, ableism, homophobia, transphobia, but yet you got people out here who swear that they're men of God. Because the version of Christianity they were taught was never about togetherness, it was never about love thy neighbor, it's been about control. Since some of us learned how to talk, we've been prepared for the rapture. We've always had a grandparent in our ear telling us that Jesus was coming back in our lifetime, traumatizing us, saying that we're not going to finish our lives out on earth. And as an adult, I can't really say that'll be bad, but anyway. But yeah, God and Jesus are going to come back in this lifetime and they will judge you. And are you doing exactly what God says is your standard of morality in God's eyes good? We make great music, like we definitely spiced up the colonizers' religion. But it was the same thing with Native American people. Christianity was forced upon us so we could become complacent with the way the patriarchy was going. Violence is what really got us out of slavery. I do not trust any Black person who says that they're a God-fearing Christian. I don't care how ingrained it is with our culture. Christianity will never be my religion, and speaking from experience of a pastor's grandchild, it messes up our men, especially our men. It holds our women to a high, impossible standard. It gatekeeps their bodies. It's a tool, and it's a really effective tool.
Every day my brain breaks when I think about the fact that Christianity is built off of a contradiction. The same concept that got Satan kicked out of heaven, Adam and Eve kicked out of the garden, is the same concept that made Christ qualified to die on the cross for humanity, and the same concept humanity has to follow to be qualified to get into fucking heaven, being more like God. Now people will say, well, Satan was disobedient, but nobody will ask, how did Satan have the ability to be disobedient if sin never existed in heaven and disobedience is sin? That's a real question to fucking ask. Nobody ever asked, how was it after Adam and Eve ate of the fruit in the garden, the first thing that they experienced was guilt and shame when the fruit was supposed to make them like God? You mean to tell me this motherfucker walking around feeling guilty and shameful? Tell you Christ was perfect, but my question is, why does the Bible depict God's perfect as being superior to Christ's perfect? And if they are God in three person, why didn't Christ have the same knowing that God did? And better yet, why didn't the God of the Old Testament know that he was going to become the God of the New Testament and have a change of heart and realize he needs to send his son to die, like there wasn't another way through love or something like peace, I don't fucking know, to get his people back to him, instead of just smiting people for century after century?
As Christians, we don't speak to our ancestors. Those are demons. So let me get this right.
Child, okay, so I saw this video going around and I was like, girl, why you do that? Why you do that? One thing I don't understand about Christian people is like they're the main ones who have a problem with everybody else's religion. That's number one. Number two, whenever somebody is spiritual, quote unquote, and they choose to create their own set of beliefs, I never really see them attacking another religion or attacking another person's belief. I mean, there's always going to be bad eggs, but the main difference that I see with spirituality and esoteric practices versus Christianity is that Christians always have a bone to pick with somebody. And I'm like, why? So go back and watch the video that I stitched, y'all. She gonna tell you what's going on with this girl. Yeah, this girl right here. She didn't allow me to stitch her video, so I had to do a screenshot. She talking about Summer Walker's altar and whatnot. And my thing is, girl, like, Christians always out here talking about what they don't do. And I'm like, girl, what do you do? What do y'all do? What does your religion do? How does it help people? Okay? And I know there are people who testify and they give testimonies. I grew up in a Christian church, Baptist, Methodist, whatever you want to call it. All the churches, I've been to them. Okay? And if you're someone who just doesn't resonate with the message of Christianity, not that you think anything is wrong with it, it just doesn't help push you to where you need to go, you might want to consider creating your own spiritual practices. I am a spiritual practitioner. I still believe in God. There is a source of power. And what a lot of people are not clicking on, okay, especially people like this lady, is that as a person who practices any religion, more than likely, y'all are all talking about the same person. Sorry to break it to you. Sorry to hurt your feelings. Sorry to crush your dreams. Y'all all talking about the same person. Source, the Most High, God, whoever you want to call. If you want to call it the universe, then that's the universe, because that's what it is. It's a universal power of creation. That is why you exist. And I really think a lot of Christians don't really know where their religion comes from. For example, this book, The Darkening Age. Look it up. Read it. It'll tell you everything that you need to know about how Christianity began and the fact that it was a slaughterhouse. It was literally massacre after massacre after massacre, destruction after destruction after destruction, terrorizing innocent people. And that's the energy you feel comfortable manifesting with? Do your own thing. I ain't mad, but not for me.